Friday evenings used to be our thing. For years, even when we were too tired for dinner dates or weekend trips, we always carved out Friday nights for each other. Sometimes it was takeout and a movie. Other times it was just sitting on the back porch, sharing a drink and pretending the week hadn't drained us both. But lately, things had changed. Hannah had been attending these community board meetings for the last couple of months. She said she wanted to get more involved, help shape policy or infrastructure or something equally noble that I didn't fully follow. I didn't ask too many questions. Truthfully, I was proud at first, proud of her passion, her drive. It was one of the things I'd always admired about her. But lately, her commitments had become more frequent, the details fuzzier, and the explanations thinner. Still, I trusted her. Or maybe I was trying to. That night, she told me she had left her car at the old high school and caught a ride to the meeting with a colleague. Just easier with parking, she said. Besides, we were carpooling from the same office. I didn't think much of it. I'd already made dinner. Chicken and rice, something quick and easy. She was supposed to be home by 9. Around 8:15, I noticed a manila folder on the kitchen counter, something work-related, labeled with a red tab and her handwriting across the top. I figured I'd drop it off at her car. It was close by and maybe it'd be a nice gesture. I wasn't trying to spy. I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect to find her. When I pulled into the school lot, it was mostly empty. A few streetlights cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. It had that eerie, abandoned feel most school parking lots have at night. But tucked away in the far corner, under the orange glow of a flickering lamp, was a silver SUV with its interior lights faintly illuminating the cabin. It caught my eye because it wasn't there earlier when I drove by. I'd stopped for gas about 20 minutes before and took the long way home. The SUV definitely hadn't been there then. As I eased closer, I saw movement. At first, I thought I was imagining things, my mind playing tricks on me. But then I saw her. Hannah. My wife. Sitting in the passenger seat, turned slightly toward a man in the driver's seat. She was smiling. No, laughing. Her head tilted back the way she does when she's really into a story. Her hand was resting on her thigh, and his hand was right there, covering hers like it had every right to be. I didn't recognize him. Mid-30s, maybe a bit older than me. He wore a hoodie and jeans, casual. Relaxed. Like this was routine. Like he belonged there with her. My stomach turned. I pulled my car into the lot slowly, parking several rows behind them, half hidden in the shadow of an old oak tree. I just sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel like it could keep me grounded. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't sure if it was from shock, anger, or the cold wave of nausea washing over me. What the hell was I looking at? I got out of the car. Quietly. No slamming doors, no shouting. I just walked, each step deliberate, like I was trying to confirm that I wasn't dreaming. But before I got within 20 feet of them, the interior lights flicked off, the engine came alive, and the SUV began to move. They peeled out of the lot faster than anyone just having a work talk ever would. I stood there for a moment after the taillights disappeared. Not moving. Not breathing. Just trying to make sense of what I saw. When I got back home, her car was already in the driveway. She was inside, barefoot, hair pulled up, wearing sweatpants and a loose t-shirt. Dinner had been reheated. She smiled like nothing had happened. Hey babe, she said. You're back early. Early? I said nothing. Just placed the folder on the counter. You left this, I said. Oh shoot, thank you, she replied, casually taking it from my hands. I meant to grab it, but we were in such a rush. I waited. I gave her the chance. I wanted to see if she'd say anything. She didn't. So I asked, as directly as I could, who was that in the SUV? Her body stiffened just for a second, barely noticeable, but I saw it. She turned to face me, blinking like I'd asked something out of nowhere. What SUV? She asked, her tone just a hair too light. At the school. I was dropping this off. I saw you. There it was. A flash of panic followed quickly by a recovery. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and gave me a small, controlled smile. Oh, you saw us? That was just Trevor. He's new on the board. We were going over some ideas for the downtown project. Looked like more than ideas, I said before I could stop myself. Her expression flattened. Jake, don't do that. I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling you what I saw. Her arms crossed, a defensive posture. It was a conversation. He was making a joke about the mural grant, that's why I was laughing. It's really not a big deal. He just gave me a ride back to my car. And the hand on your leg? She didn't answer right away. Just looked down, then back up at me. I think you're reading too much into it, she said slowly. I'm tired, Jake. Can we not do this tonight? I nodded. Sure. I didn't push. Not then. But inside something shifted. Something cold and irreversible. It wasn't just what I saw, it was how prepared she seemed. The way she recovered. The way her voice didn't shake. It was too smooth. Too composed. She didn't fumble. She didn't even get mad. It was like she knew I'd ask and she had the whole response lined up in her head ahead of time. And that's what stayed with me. That moment. That script. It wasn't the SUV. Or the guy. Or even the laughing. It was the ease in her tone when she lied to me. That was the night I stopped trusting her even if I didn't want to admit it yet. I'd always believed we were the kind of couple who could work through anything. But something broke that night. Quietly. Permanently. Not with a fight. Not with a scream. Just with the sound of an engine turning over and the sight of her smiling for someone else. After the SUV, something inside me didn't go back to normal. I didn't talk about it. I didn't bring it up again. But I noticed everything. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. You spend years with someone, waking up to the same breath beside you, hearing their footsteps pad down the hall, memorizing the way they stir their coffee, and then one crack appears and suddenly, nothing feels stable. It's like realizing the floor you've been walking on isn't made of hardwood after all, just carefully painted cardboard. That Monday, I waited for Hannah to leave for work, then walked into the bathroom while the steam from her shower still clung to the mirror. Her towel was bunched on the floor. The scent of her shampoo lingered, but her phone wasn't on the counter. That used to be her habit, charging it there while she got ready, music playing softly as she hummed along. But now it was always with her. Always silent. Always upside down. The next day, I noticed something else. She'd left her bag on the kitchen table when she ran back upstairs for something. I didn't touch it, just glanced inside when the flap slid open. There was a receipt from a juice bar, not unusual except it wasn't in our neighborhood. It was downtown. On a day when she told me she'd had meetings across town. A 15-minute detour if you're looking to get caught. But this was deliberate. She didn't care if I found it. Or maybe she thought I never would. Later that week, she said she had to go out of town for a work conference. She mentioned it in passing while brushing her teeth. The timing was odd. No warning. Just a casual, oh, by the way. No itinerary. No hotel confirmation. Nothing. I offered to drive her to the airport. She laughed. Jake, it's not a real flight. I'm carpooling with some colleagues. Who? I asked, trying to sound neutral. She paused. Too long. Trevor and a few others from planning. Right? Trevor. Of course. That's when I started writing things down. Dates. Times. Places. Conversations. I didn't want to be the kind of man who kept tabs on his wife, but I also didn't want to be the kind of man who was lied to in plain sight and smiled through it. It wasn't just her phone or her vague answers. It was the shift in presence. She used to sit with me during dinner, legs curled under her, wine glass in hand, asking questions about my day. But now she'd eat quickly or say she already ate with coworkers. Then disappear upstairs. Always tired. Always burned out. But she wasn't tired enough to stop posting. Her social media stayed active. Stories of lattes at bright cafes. Tagged locations I'd never heard her mention. Once, I found a boomerang of her clinking glasses with someone, just two hands in the *T, hers and another. A man's hand. The caption read, "Great minds, great plans." I stared at it for a full minute. She deleted it later, but not before I ***ed it. On another day, I was folding laundry, something I'd taken on lately, mostly to keep my hands busy and my mind distracted, when I pulled out a navy blue hoodie that definitely wasn't mine. It smelled like cologne. Something sharp, citrusy, expensive. I knew better than to ask. Instead, I held it up, examined it, then folded it neatly and placed it in her drawer. That night, I saw her take it out and stare at it like she'd forgotten it existed. Then she tossed it into her gym bag without a word. Sometimes she'd say she had late-night calls with West Coast clients. She'd go into the guest room, close the door, and leave the fan on to muffle her voice. I'd hear laughter through the vents. That soft, familiar tone, the one I used to hear on our early dates when she wasn't trying to make me laugh, just letting herself be free. I started to wonder if the marriage I thought we had was real, or if I just imagined it into being. I asked myself the kind of questions that don't have good answers. Had it started long ago and I just missed it? Had she ever really stopped choosing me? One night, we had dinner with my sister and her husband. Hannah barely touched her food. She smiled too much, agreed too quickly, laughed like she was auditioning for a role she no longer wanted. When my sister asked her about the meeting she'd missed last week, one she was apparently still on the board for, Hannah looked caught off guard. "Oh, that got rescheduled," she said quickly. I watched my sister's brow furrow slightly. She didn't push, but later that night, after we got home, I found a message from her on my phone. Is everything okay with you too? Something felt off. It was the first time someone else said what I'd been too afraid to voice out loud. I didn't reply. What could I say? Yes, things were off. But I didn't have proof. I had fragments. I had instincts. I had sleepless nights and quiet suspicions that tied my stomach in knots. I had 100 little things that didn't add up. But no confession. No visible betrayal. No obvious trigger. Still, it added up in its own way. And every new inconsistency, every shift in tone, every unexplained moment, it all layered like sediment, burying the version of her I used to know under something I couldn't recognize anymore. She stopped coming to my family dinners entirely. Said she was exhausted. Said the meetings were running late. One night, she claimed she had a headache and needed to lie down. An hour later, I saw a photo of her on someone's Instagram story, smiling at a cocktail bar, dressed in something that definitely wasn't pajamas. I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew that if I spoke, I might never stop. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I really did. I wanted to believe she was just tired, just distracted, just busy with work. But deep down, I knew better. The way she avoided eye contact. The way she'd sigh when I asked her simple questions. The way her face lit up when her phone buzzed and dimmed when she saw it was me. Love doesn't die all at once. It decays. Quietly. Almost politely. Until one day you realize you're looking across the dinner table at someone who used to be your best friend and is now a carefully curated stranger. I told myself maybe I was being unfair. Maybe I was projecting. Maybe I was insecure. But every time I tried to convince myself of that, something new would happen. A canceled weekend trip. An unfamiliar name mentioned too casually. A dinner bill in her purse from a place I'd never been, dated the same night she said she was working late. It wasn't just the lies. It was the ease with which she told them. That was the part one couldn't get past. She didn't hesitate. Didn't fumble. Didn't stutter. It was like she'd rehearsed. It was a Sunday morning in March when everything fell into place. It didn't come with a bang. No angry text. No confession. No dramatic confrontation. Just a soft ding from a tablet and a screen that shouldn't have been lit. That's how it always happens, isn't it? Not with AG*NSH*T, but a whisper. I was in bed, half asleep, sunlight leaking through the blinds. Hannah was in the shower. Her phone was probably with her, as usual. But the tablet, the one we'd used mostly for streaming, online orders, and checking recipes, was on the nightstand. She must have forgotten to silence the notifications. I didn't think anything of it at first. I just glanced at the screen out of habit. It was a travel review request. Tell us about your recent stay at Beach Hollow Resort. Beach Hollow? The name sat in my chest like a stone. I tapped the notification and it opened to a detailed itinerary. 3 nights. Ocean view suite. 2 guests. Spa services. Wine pairings. Dinner reservations. Sunset bonfire package. All confirmed under one name, Trevor Bryson. Trevor T. Bryson. I read it twice, then a third time. The dates were last month, a weekend. Hannah had told me she'd be attending a charity leadership seminar 2 towns over. She even came home with a pamphlet about grant writing and community impact. I remember because she'd left it on the dining room table like a breadcrumb she didn't want to forget. I stared at the screen, not breathing. This wasn't hearsay. This wasn't suspicion. This wasn't a feeling. This was a receipt. It was also in her handwriting. I'd forgotten she printed the resort confirmation to double-check the billing. She'd said it out loud. I'd only half-listened, chalking it up to her usual obsessive organization. But now the memory came rushing back. The paper. Her notes in the margins. Gluten-free request scribbled in her distinct, looping cursive. She never wrote that way for work. That was her personal handwriting. The way she labeled leftover containers or wrote birthday cards. The way she used to leave notes on the bathroom mirror. The kind of handwriting reserved for someone she cared about. But not for me. Not anymore. I heard the shower water shut off and my body responded automatically, screen off, tablet face down, composure up. But inside I was vibrating. Numb. And yet hyper-aware. Like 1,000 pins pressing through my skin all at once. I got up and made coffee like it was any other morning. She came down 10 minutes later in joggers and a hoodie, acting tired but cheerful. Gave me a kiss on the cheek like nothing was wrong. Sleep okay? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Yeah, I said. You. She nodded and yawned. I had the weirdest dream. I was back in college, but I was also the mayor of some small town. Isn't that strange? I smiled. Said something about how that sounded like her. She laughed. We went about the day. But I didn't look at her the same. Couldn't. Something had shifted. Something final. It wasn't the cheating. Not really. It was the planning. The coordination. The layering of lies so seamless that even now she still believed she had me fooled. She'd written notes. Booked dinners. She had packed bags and smiles and fake itineraries. She'd covered her tracks with the precision of someone who no longer questioned the morality of her actions, only the logistics. And all the while she looked me in the eyes. For weeks I had been grasping at strands, collecting fragments. Hunches. Inconsistencies. Misplaced receipts. Gaslighting disguised as forgetfulness. But now I didn't need evidence. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't even need her to admit it. The truth had walked right into my hands, politely, digitally, and without shame. That afternoon I went for a walk by myself. It was cold, the wind biting at my jacket as I traced the edge of a nearby lake. A family was walking a golden retriever up ahead, their little girl bundled in pink, laughing as she tried to keep up. The dog stopped to sniff every leaf, and the father patiently waited, hands in pockets, eyes soft. I watched them like they were on a screen. It was a scene I used to imagine for Hannah and me. Our future. Maybe not with a golden retriever, but something close. I used to picture what our life would be like in 5 years. In 10. I used to believe that no matter what life threw at us, we'd figure it out together. That we were the kind of couple who bent but never broke. Now I realized we'd already broken. We'd been broken for a long time. She just didn't tell me. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the erasure. She had moved on emotionally. Spiritually. In asterisk mately. She had found a new life, a new version of herself, a new connection, and she left me behind like old luggage. Too inconvenient to carry, too familiar to toss. So instead, she kept me in a purgatory of just enough attention. Just enough affection. Just enough fiction. I didn't cry. I thought maybe I would. I thought maybe the realization would rip something open, but it didn't. It was like watching the credits roll on a movie I'd already seen, the one where the plot twist was obvious all along, but you still hoped the ending would change. When I got home, she was in the living room, curled up with a blanket and her laptop. "Hey," she said, looking up from the screen. "I was thinking we could do something next weekend. Like a hike? Or maybe drive up to the state park." I looked at her, really looked. The woman I married was still there in pieces, but not whole. Not reachable. Not mine. "Sounds good," I said, because I didn't have the energy to lie and no reason to tell the truth. Not yet. That night, I sat in the guest room with the lights off and the tablet in my lap. I pulled up the itinerary again. The confirmation email. The reviews. The couple's spa treatment she never mentioned. The beachfront dinner she'd supposedly skipped because she had a migraine. The exact timestamps. The folder icon where she had saved the receipt under a different name, old work docs. It was all right there. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was comfortable with it. And maybe that was the clearest sign of all, not the mistake itself, but the ease with which it was maintained. The double life she curated like a second identity. An actress with 2 wardrobes, 2 scripts, 2 smiles. I didn't confront her. Not because I didn't care. Because I didn't want the performance anymore. I didn't want the apologies rehearsed in the mirror. The fake tears. The pretend confusion. I didn't want to be gaslit or guilted or soothed into submission. I wanted space. I wanted truth, not for the sake of clarity, but for the sake of closure. That's what the tablet gave me. That one silent alert. A stranger's email algorithm doing the work that love had failed to finish. It told me something that no conversation ever could. That it was over. That it had been over for a long time. She just hadn't mentioned it. The morning I left, the world was still. No alarms. No traffic. No rain beating on the windows. Just silence, the kind that hums inside your bones when your decision is already made. I was up before the sun, padding barefoot through the kitchen like a ghost in my own house. I didn't bother with lights. I didn't need them. I'd memorized every corner of this place, every scuffed baseboard, every drawer that stuck, every creaky floorboard. It had been our home for almost 7 years. But today it was just a shell. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat in the dining room with only the fridge's soft buzz to keep me company. The photo on the wall, our wedding in Vermont, tilted slightly to the left. I'd noticed it months ago. I never fixed it. I didn't need another fight. I didn't want a dramatic scene or a last-minute plea for understanding. I just wanted to leave on my own terms, quiet, intentional, complete. I packed the night before. Just one duffel bag. A few clothes, some toiletries, my passport, the photo of our son from before he moved out west. I tucked it between the pages of an old notebook, the same one where I used to write notes to Hannah. Grocery lists, inside jokes, scribbled plans for future road trips we never took. That notebook hadn't been opened in months. I left the keys on the kitchen counter. Next to them I placed a single sheet of paper. No emotion. No passive-aggressive digs. No manipulative language. Just truth. Honest and spare. Hannah. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for an explanation. I just need something you stopped giving me a long time ago. Peace. Don't contact me. Take care of yourself. Jake. I sat for a while longer after leaving the note, letting the silence settle in. My hands were steady, my breath even. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel rage. I felt like I was finally stepping out of a fog that had taken root in me for far too long. I turned off my phone. I disabled location sharing. I deleted the shared calendar app we once used to plan our lives. I left no breadcrumbs. For the first time in over a decade, I didn't feel like I had to explain my movements to anyone. No check-ins. No ETA. No justification for disappearing. I just left. I drove north with no clear destination. Just a vague sense that somewhere past the city and its relentless sprawl, I might find space to breathe. I took backroads instead of highways. I passed through quiet towns with boarded-up gas stations and faded diners. I stopped once at a small cafe with cracked vinyl booths and a chalkboard menu. The waitress called me Han and poured my coffee without asking. She didn't ask where I was headed. I didn't offer it. Somewhere around noon, I pulled off the road at a rest stop and sat on the hood of the car, letting the cold air bite through my jacket. I looked up at the sky and not searching for meaning, just needing to look at something vast and impersonal. Something that didn't ask anything from me. I had no plan. But I had clarity. I remembered when we first moved into our house. Hannah painted the hallway walls a muted blue. Said it made the space feel open like a coastal breeze. I never told her I hated that color. Not because it was bad, but because it always made me feel cold, like we were pretending to be relaxed, breezy people when really we were two introverts playing house with magazine aesthetics. It wasn't a bad marriage. Not at first. But somewhere along the way we stopped checking in. We stopped telling the truth in little ways. Then the big ways. Until eventually we stopped asking where the other one had been, not because we trusted each other, but because we didn't care enough to ask. Maybe that's how it always happens. Not with shouting, but with silence. The gradual erosion of us until it becomes you and me separated by a couch, a hallway, an inbox of unread conversations we no longer bother to finish. As the wind picked up, I zipped my jacket and got back in the car. I drove another 2 hours before pulling into a small motel just outside a quiet town nestled at the base of a mountain range. The neon sign flickered vacancy. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. The clerk didn't ask questions. I paid in cash and didn't give my real name. The room was small but clean. One bed. One window. One TV bolted to the wall. It was perfect. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out the photo of our son. He was 6 in that picture, missing a front tooth, covered in dirt after soccer practice. Hannah had taken it. I remembered how she laughed when she snapped it, genuinely, not the strained version I'd grown used to. I wondered when we stopped being parents together and started being roommates who shared custody of memories. I wondered if he knew. If he'd seen the cracks before I did. If that's part of why he kept his distance lately. I didn't sleep much. But I didn't toss and turn either. I just laid there, eyes open, letting the stillness wrap around me like a blanket. I wasn't in love. I wasn't in pain. I was in the middle, that strange middle ground where grief and relief share the same breath. I woke before dawn the next morning. No alarms. Just instinct. I made coffee using the little single-serve machine on the dresser. It tasted like plastic and burnt hope. But it was warm. I checked my email, something I hadn't done since the day before I left. There were already 3 messages from Hannah. The first was short, "Where are you?" The second, "Jake, please. This isn't the way to do this." The third was longer, an emotional apology disguised as concern. "If something's wrong, we can fix it. Please just tell me what I did. I didn't mean to hurt you." But that was the thing. She did. She may not have meant to. But she chose it. Again and again. Not just with Trevor, but with every lie that followed. With every omission. With every smile that meant something different to someone else. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I had nothing left to say. I logged out of the email. Deleted the account entirely. Later that day, I went to the bank and withdrew a good chunk of money from my personal savings account. It was the one she didn't know about, one I opened before we were married, never closed, never touched. I wasn't hiding anything. I just never merged everything the way she wanted. Maybe I sensed even then that one day I'd need something that was only mine. I put the cash in a lockbox and kept it in the trunk. I bought a prepaid phone. New number. No contacts. I told no one where I was. Not because I didn't trust them. Because I didn't trust what I might do if I stayed in that life a moment longer. That night, I drove up to a scenic overlook and sat on the hood of the car again, this time with a thermos of coffee and a blanket. The air was thin, crisp. Below me, the lights of the town flickered like embers in a dying fire. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Not happy. Not healed. But unanchored. And that felt like a beginning. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew what I was leaving behind. And that was enough. I didn't set out to become a detective. After I left, I told myself I was done. That I didn't need proof or closure or explanations to validate my decision. That what I'd seen on the tablet, what I'd lived through, the long silences, the covered tracks, the hollow smiles had already told me everything I needed to know. And for a while, that was enough. But as the days bled into weeks, something kept pulling at me. Not anger. Not even heartbreak. Just the steady itch in the back of my mind, the kind you get when you know you've left a door slightly ajar and you can't quite rest until it's shut tight. So I opened it. I started small. Just looking through old receipts I'd shoved in the junk drawer before I left town. I'd packed a few things from the house, important documents, financials, spare keys, and thrown in a stack of loose paper without really looking. One night, in a rented cabin 3 hours from home, I spread them out across the kitchen table. That's when I found it. An envelope worn at the edges. It had my name on the front in Hannah's handwriting, but it wasn't sealed. Inside was a single photograph and a greeting card, both completely out of place. The photo had been professionally printed. Glossy. Clear. Hannah standing on a beach at sunset, barefoot in the sand, wearing a white sundress I didn't recognize. Her arm looped through Trevor's. They were smiling at the camera, close, easy. Like a couple posing for a Christmas card. A small bonfire crackled behind them. The kind of scene you don't stumble into, the kind you plan for. I stared at it for a long time, my eyes tracing every detail. Her relaxed posture. The way her head leaned slightly toward him. The way their fingers grazed. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was an asterisk, Macy. This was intention. Inside the envelope was also a card, bright blue, with a gold-embossed heart on the front. The inside was short, written in messy pen. Trevor, I never thought I'd find something like this again. Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be seen. H. It wasn't signed, but it didn't have to be. It was her handwriting. I didn't remember this card. I didn't remember this photo. Which meant I wasn't meant to find either. So why had she kept it? Why was it tucked away with things labeled under my name? A mistake? Maybe. Or maybe she thought it was clever, hiding one life in the paperwork of another. I folded the card shut and slipped both items into a manila folder I'd started filling with moments like this. Accidental truths. Screensh *TS. Deleted emails I'd recovered from the recycle bin. A printed copy of the Beach Hollow receipt. I wasn't hoarding evidence out of spite. I wasn't planning to use it in a courtroom or expose her to our friends or make some grand public show of betrayal. I just wanted to see it all clearly. To lay out every piece, face up on the table and say, yes, this really happened. You're not crazy. You didn't imagine the distance, the lies, the slow decay. It was real, and it wasn't your fault. It helped. Strangely, it helped more than any conversation ever had. Still, I needed more. I made one call. Just one. A friend of mine, Dan, worked in insurance investigations. We hadn't spoken since before things fell apart. But I knew he was the type of guy who kept records. Meticulous, organized, no nonsense. I didn't tell him everything. Just that I needed to check a few claim reports under Hannah's name, tied to our shared address. He hesitated. Jake, you sure you want to open that box? It's already open, I said. I just want to see what's inside. A few days later, he emailed me 3 PDFs. Nothing dramatic, no car accidents or major injuries. But one caught my eye. A claim for minor property damage at a coastal resort. The date? The same weekend Hannah said she was at a seminar. The location? Same town as Beach Hollow. The description? Scratches on driver's side door from parking lot debris. Possibly beach sandblasting or vandalism near shoreline. It was small, insignificant on its own, but added to everything else, it was the last puzzle piece clicking into place. She had gone there, with him, dined with him, slept beside him, spent long, int asterisk mate mornings and lazy afternoons while I folded her laundry, heated her leftovers, and waited for her to get back from the conference. And then she had the nerve to come home, kiss me on the forehead, and tell me about grant proposals. I closed the file and stared out the cabin window. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows on the floor. I should have felt angry, but I didn't. I felt finished. There was a calm that came with the knowing, with no more guessing, no more double-checking receipts or rereading texts. Just the full, ugly picture of what had unfolded while I was still clinging to the idea that our marriage was worth saving. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin her life or steal back some false sense of power. I just wanted to stop carrying it. So I gathered everything, the photo, the card, the claims, the emails, and I organized them neatly into one folder. I wrote a single word on the tab, closure. I didn't plan to show it to her. Not unless I had to. But I needed it in my hands, in my possession. Not as a we asterisk p asterisk n, but as a witness. Because closure, I was learning, isn't about someone else's apology. It's about putting the truth in front of you, all of it, and saying, I saw it. I lived it. I survived it. That night, I built a fire outside the cabin and sat beside it with the folder in my lap. I didn't throw it in. I wasn't ready. But I set it on the table beside me, knowing that I could. That if I wanted to, I could let it burn. I didn't need answers from Hannah. She'd given me all the ones I needed without ever meaning to. She may have rewritten our story without me, but now I had the original draft in my hands. And I would decide how it ended. That I met with a lawyer in a quiet office above a bakery in a town Hannah's GPS wouldn't recognize. The folder I'd assembled sat on the table between us. I didn't bring a list of demands, no property claims, no alimony. Just peace. When the documents were ready, I sent word through a mediator. Hannah showed up looking polished but fragile. She tried to keep control of the conversation until she saw what I had. Her face changed. No yelling, no begging, just a quiet unraveling. I signed the papers that day. She asked if we could talk privately. I said no. There was nothing left to salvage. I moved to a cabin in Colorado. No internet, just trees, a lake, and the sound of wind moving through pine. I chopped wood, read old novels, cooked simple meals. Locals knew me as the guy who keeps to himself. I wasn't hiding. I was rebuilding. Some mornings I'd sketch in a notebook. Other times I'd just sit by the water and listen. There was no one to lie to, no messages to decode. In solitude, I didn't find sadness, I found clarity. I had lost a marriage. But in the silence, I began to find myself aging.